Obviously, the Chancellor's got some big decisions to make this coming week, some perhaps difficult decisions to make this coming week. You were very recently the Secretary of State for Education. Should he be finding some savings in that budget, or is there no savings to be made there?
Well, it's certainly the case that things are very tight at education, and schools are already struggling with rises in energy cost and general inflation and cost of living, and of course a 5% pay rise which was given to teachers last year. Not all of which the funding, not all of which was included in their budget settlement. So it is very tough, and I have to say I've seen some quite alarming stuff in the paper over the last couple of days, where they are indicating that there might be cuts to the education budget, and as far as I can see, I can't see how that can be acceptable, particularly when you bear in mind that during the pandemic it was children and their education that was most significantly damaged, and we're just in the middle of a kind of catch-up. Teachers across the country are working really hard to get kids back up to speed. Them, performance having dipped naturally during the pandemic. And so to disturb that dynamic, just as this generation are getting back on their feet, would seem to me a really, really, unacceptable thing to do.
This, but government will say they've given an extra £4 billion to the education budget. They're also helping with the energy bill relief scheme. So won't that go some way to supporting the schooling's budget?
Well, yeah, look, definitely this inflation and pre the war in Ukraine, education had a good settlement. It absolutely did. You're right, 4 billion quid going in. But since then, obviously, we've seen significantly rising costs. So within that 4 billion quid, there was a sort of estimate of a pay rise of about 3%. It's actually come in at 5%, with even more for lower paid teachers, because don't forget, we have a manifesto commitment to get the starting salary to teachers up to 30,000 quid. And so the pressure on schools is really, really intense. And I know, certainly from my time at DfE, that head teachers across the land, and not just the people who normally complain about money, but people really at the top of their game are now looking forward to next year, to their budgets, and saying, can we manage with the same number of staff? Are we going to have to reduce headcounts? And if we reduce headcount, what impact is that going to have on quality of education? Now, when you make cuts like Jeremy's going to have to make it. Don't get me wrong. I agree with fiscal responsibility. I think we have to look at our spending. We've definitely been spending beyond our means over the last few years. You have to do that within a framework of priorities. You have to say, look, there are some areas that we have to protect because they're so important and so vital that we've got to stand by them, even in times of financial difficulty. And for me, the number one should be schools and our children's education, because if we don't get that right, there will be a disaster, not just for them personally, but for the whole country down the road as they move through the education system and into the job market. So I would be putting schools and education front and center as an area where, if anything, we should be investing, not necessarily cutting.